Dune on 4K Blu-ray. Buckle up because we're going at my pace and at my style. Also, forgive my eyes if they look kind of crazy. One, I'm tired, and two, they're still recovering from laser eye surgery. All right, we'll just get this handled right now. The 4K Blu-ray is absolutely immaculate. It looks perfect and flawless, and the sound on it is also incredible and vibrant and exciting. And the bass is so much bass. Um, this is an absolute perfect looking movie, and it's really interesting how they shot it. Shot it digitally, and then printed it on film, and then scanned it so that it actually does have the final product. Actually has a tingly film grain, so that it looks like an old film style movie. For me, this movie was, when I saw it in IMAX, an absolute experience where few movies do that nowadays. And it was like an event watching this thing in IMAX. My only complaint about the 4K Blu-ray disc is that it doesn't have the IMAX ratio. So it stays at this aspect ratio the whole time and it doesn't open up at the IMAX shots. I'm thinking that they're going to do a re-release, but I bought it anyway because I needed to watch it. But I bet they're going to do a re-release with the IMAX aspect ratio. Hope so anyway. Do it, Denis. Couple notes on some Dune things. So I grew up with this constantly playing in my house because it was my dad's favorite movie. So more on this to follow some other time. Sneak peek there. That's the 1984 Dune. And this is my paperback copy of the Book of Dune. I'm not gonna lie, this is a struggle. I'm reading it and I'm like, this is so good, but it is hard. It is hard for me to read this, and so I might surrender and just do the audiobook. But I'm enjoying it. It's really good, but it's one of the most difficult books I've ever read, and I've read Moby Dick. Okay, so like I said, get yourself comfy because we're going through this movie and we're going through what I think of a lot of parts in it, and I'll tell you right now, I love basically every second of this movie. I think it's absolutely incredible and one of the most purposeful movies that I've ever seen. This movie blew me away when I saw it. It was so refreshing to have this come out after the absolute failure of Star Wars, when it should have been such an easy home run to just make endless Star Wars movies. So this just gave me hope that we could have an awesome sci-fi franchise. Speaking of which, I was having a conversation with someone in some YouTube comments about when this movie was being made, and I said I hope it's PG-13, and someone's like, no, it has to be rated R because the book has all this horrible stuff and this and that. It has to be rated R. Like, there's no way to do it. And I argued or discussed. I was like, no way. You can make it PG-13 and still imply things that are horrific. You just don't have to show it all. And I was like, look at Hitchcock. Hitchcock portrays some of the most terrifying and disturbing things, and yet you're not looking at it directly in front of you. It's implied, and in your mind, I feel like it's pretty similar. Anyway, so I said also it needs to be, so to be more watchable, like for families or whatever, but also it needs to be PG-13 so that it can make more money, and actually be a franchise. These guys in the comments, everyone's like, oh man, I really want this to be a Dune series and multiple movies and all this stuff. And they're like, but it has to be rated R. And it's like, man, it has to be PG-13 so it can make money so that it can be a series. Anyway, when it came out and it was PG-13, I was like, ha! Anyway, there's a lot of parts in here that are kind of horrific. Like, there's a decapitation in this movie. Did you know that? And there's actually there's like a lot of nudity, but it's all hidden. And there's quite a bit of like graphic violence, but it's very extremely carefully done. And I'll point it out as we get to it. But that's one thing that I think is cool about this movie is that it's artfully done. It still has high impact, But it doesn't just go for like the gross out or graphic or whatever. Because I think that's the easy way. I think the way Denis did it here is the more skilled way of making it. Okay, here we go. Get comfy. Another thing I love about this movie is how much of this movie is just told through pictures. There's so much visual storytelling in this entire movie, and you just learn so much. It's just such a joy to watch it and drink in all the details. But look at this part here.
If you want it, make me give it to you. Use the voice.
Oh, I just woke up.
Okay. So I would argue, I don't know if anyone would argue with me because maybe it's just super obvious. But when he uses the voice on his mom right here, and she says it doesn't work, it totally did work. The crazy part is that she's ready for it. She knows that someone's about to use the voice on her, so she's like all resilient. And then here she is, basically in her mind, obeying him. Right here. And then you see she resisted it. And she was reaching for it. And she's like, yeah, you almost got me. And it's like, no, he got you. He got you. You're teaching him well. So I love that part because you see her do it in her head and then it shows reality and she's just reaching for the cup and she was like fighting it so hard. But it totally did work on her. And I just love all the ways that they're building Paul's character here. So for later in the movie, all of the payoffs, all of his like superpowers or high skill things that he ends up doing, they all have a foundation in the movie that you can see. Unlike other characters like Rey or whatever, or in other movies where they just suddenly can do everything. I guess like little Leia in the Obi-Wan TV show, like she just knew how to do everything. She was like a superpower. This movie with Paul, you just have the foundation for all of his skills. There's some things that seem a little mystical, but they really do a good job of building the foundation so that when they do make those leaps, you're on board with it. These still suits are so cool. Look at that, right on the neck and the face. Costume-wise, that just reminds me of what's called a shamag, which is a thing like this. It's just like a little cloth that you kind of wrap up and put around your neck, like suchly, and you look all festive and cool in the desert or wherever. And this is honestly one of my favorite articles of clothing / pieces of gear, depending on the context it's used in. But I love these things because it's so thin. It keeps the sun off your neck, keeps the sand out of you. I love it. So I love the costume design in here. It's so good. It feels so authentic. Also, actually the only costume design thing in this entire movie that kind of bothers me and distracts me and takes me out of it is this right here on the glove. So you've got kind of the knuckle. Do you see that? The hard knuckle pad thing. And then there's kind of another one right there. And so to me, that steps away from practicality and is the costume designer being like, I need more stuff on this suit, right? So the still suits are awesome. I'm not making fun of them. But to my eyes, my brand new eyes, this part on the wrist, to me, looks like they just cut off that part of another glove and just stuck it on there. And so there's like this hard bump on their wrist. And to me, it just looks more like costume filler and they chopped another piece off a glove, like this kind of glove, like this, where see how it has like the hard knuckles. I don't know if you can tell that, but it's like they just chopped this piece off and stuck it on the wrist. And so that'd be the only costume part that I think is a little silly and distracting to me personally. This thing's so comfy, I might as well wear it the whole time. Okay, so real quick, a couple fun observations. So the ship's landing on Caladan. One, the landing ramp has a gigantic rug on it, and that's really cool and unlike anything I've ever seen. Two, everywhere on Caladan, there's just like standing water. There's just puddles everywhere. And three, have you ever noticed this before? I've seen this a lot, and I just now noticed this thing. Check this out. Okay, so you have these like weird bubblehead people walking down the gigantic space rug. And I don't know if my phone's going to pick it up, but look through the bubble and see if you can see their face. See? I'm going to zoom in and pause it. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to show up on my phone, but I thought that these were just like orange bubblehead people, but look at this. Oh yeah, I think you can see it on my phone. Okay, so you see like the nose, boop, and the blue eyes. Look at the blue eyes. You see the face, right? But the blue eyes is what I'm getting at. That is like a spice cloud bubble helmet. And so their eyes are all blue from spicing out. That is awesome detail. I've never noticed that before. Let me know if you've ever noticed that before. That's really, really cool. I think I'm getting sand in my eyes from wearing this thing. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it because I feel it in my heart. But at all times in this entire movie that he's in it, boop, I really want to just stick my hand in his beard and just, I mean, look at that thing. Also his hair, this big chunk right there was awesome. There's some great hair in this show. This part is one of the most awesome visual storytelling parts. So this lady is creepily staring, and she's like, oh, you're looking at me. And then she's like, wait, what are you looking at? She's like, oh my gosh, you're looking at my son. And she's like, oh crap. The lady's like, yeah, we're gonna do stuff to that kid. I just realized that those orange head people with the blue eyes are definitely in the Spacing Guild, obviously, because they need the spice for space travel. I'm not sure if they're navigators or not, but when the camera was panning across and talking about all the different representatives who were there, it said Spacing Guild when it showed those bubble people. So I'm pretty sure that would make sense, story-wise, why they would be the ones that are high out of their minds on spice. My goodness, Oscar Isaac has some great hair. Oh my goodness. This conversation is so good, where he talks about how great leaders don't aspire to it, they're called to it. And then if he doesn't want to be the next House Atreides Duke or whatever, that he will still be his son and love him. That is so tender and awesome. I love the father-son relationship in this movie. Hope you're in the mood for Dune, because we are gushing over this thing. We are just getting started.
What's mood to do with it? You fight when the necessity arises, no matter the mood. Now fight!
Alright, this space shot here is one of my absolute favorite in the whole movie. Actually, every frame is kind of my favorite. Let's not lie here, but I love this space shot here showing the way that they do space travel. And the rest of the movie, you don't see all the way through these things. You kind of just see them from above or below. And what I like about it is that you can see there's a planet below, there's stars over here, and then here's the ship. And then this little thing is traveling to this planet. But if you look through inside of it, there's clearly another planet there that is obviously not, like, the curvature of the planet obviously doesn't continue out here. And so without just doing like a brain dump of knowledge, being like, this is how they space travel, they fold space and they do this and they portal and this and this and this, this one shot here, you see, oh my gosh, okay, this ship must make it so that they can travel extreme distances, like a different system to a different system through this. And it's just like, okay, cool, I'm on board. It's like, you don't have to explain how it works. It's like, you're saying spice is needed for space travel. Cool, I'm on board. But this shot lets you know that there's some crazy shenanigans going on with like the folding of space or going through portals or whatever they're doing here. I just think that's a really cool shot, and I don't know if everyone noticed that there's a different planet there. So it's clearly a different part of space that they're coming through. Love it. Almost expecting to hear Jimi Hendrix start playing while all these ornithopters are getting ready and taking off. because how much Blackhawk Down this shot is. Like, I don't know if Denis Villeneuve is a huge fan of Ridley Scott and Blackhawk Down, but there's a shot coming up here that is like lifted out of Blackhawk Down. Right here. This is straight out of Blackhawk Down. At the very beginning, when they're finally going to do their raid. Yep. And the Blackhawks and the mini birds. Even down to this shot right here. Right there. That is a Blackhawk Down shot. So I don't know if it's an homage to that or if they just copied it or what, but that's what it is. So you can argue it that it was an original Denis Villeneuve move, but that is straight out of Blackhawk Down, which is a good thing because it's a great shot.
Your desert boots are fitted slip fashion at the ankles. Who taught you to do that?
Seemed the right way.
Okay, so the only thing that I can think of that means when she says your desert boots are fitted slip fashion at the ankles. So the only thing I can think of that actually meaning is something I used to do with my firefighting boots, which is, so firefighting boots or wildland firefighting boots have to be 8 inches up of leather. And so you have laces going all the way up. So like if this is your foot, the laces go all the way across. And so right here in that curve, I'll just show you on my foot. So right here where this part goes up here, what I would do in firefighting, and I also do this with my military boots, is I crisscross on the lower parts. And then once I get to this part right here, right where there's that, see if I kind of lean forward like that, how much give I have, or if I want to point my foot like that. Anyway, what I'm saying is that this part here goes crisscrossy, and then right here, instead of crisscrossing, I just have 2 loops go straight up and then resume the crisscross. So then you have kind of this spot that is like more open. But I found in firefighting with my leather boots going all the way up, I found that in like extreme hiking and just really intense physical situations that the boots were way better that way, because otherwise it would just be extremely restricted right there on that curvy spot on your foot. So maybe that's what they mean. They don't show it and they don't explain it, but that's what I think of on this part. I think of, oh, that's like me, where on the front part I go straight up on the laces instead of crisscrossing. I don't know, but there's a little bit of life for you there. Here you go. Here's another great shot of ye old back of your wrist knuckle guard glove piece. So I was talking to an army friend about this scene specifically, and just, I know it's like a sci-fi movie, but like just the realism or at least believability of it. And the thing that he pointed out was the radio traffic just feels extremely realistic in this scene. Let's see if we can catch some of it.
Correcting altitude and preparing docking equipment. Copy Alpha Zero. Initiating docking sequence.
So not so much in like how it sounds, because of course it sounds like radio traffic, but in what they're saying to each other and just the radio language that they're using. And you have oh gosh, these guys talking to these guys, and then you also have these guys talking to the ornithopter, and so there's all these different conversations going on, and it just feels like super realistic radio traffic. And like I said, my friend pointed that out. These guns and the sound they make are so cool. Oh, I love it. I love them so much. Just love the deep rumble that they make as they shoot. Okay, this is an exact example of what I was talking about the rating of the movie, how there's brutal stuff in the movie, but they don't show it directly on screen, but you know what's happening. This is also an example of what the person that I was talking to on YouTube probably was like, no way, there's no way to do it. And it's like, yeah, check this out. Check out how creatively all these people get beheaded. Right, so he's walking behind him. There, so he starts one by one chopping, and the flames get up higher as he's chopping. Also, it goes like blurry. But if you're paying attention, there's no question of what's happening right there. So it's absolutely brutal and disgusting, but it keeps the rating the same. And like I said earlier, there's multiple examples of that. Like there's a part where Duke is naked and he's like sitting back in the chair and one leg's like slightly higher, and so stuff's covered. And then the weird people in like almost wearing like raincoat thing, like see-through raincoat things, are pretty sure they're naked under those see-through raincoat things, but it's like it's like kind of fuzzy. So it's just like, and then when the big fat guy is naked in his little sauna, it's just like the smoke is very strategic. So it just seems like they were very, very careful to just keep this movie exactly PG-13, and that right there is a huge example of it. All right, so when I said this movie has decapitations, I wasn't just talking about the wrestler guy, Dave Bautista, getting the people with the fire covering it up. The fat guy, the Baron, gets Dr. Yue as well. He cuts his head off, and I'm not going to show it because that's a little bit beyond my purposes here on this channel, but after this part right here, if you look on the bottom right of the screen, you can see him holding his head, and then he tosses it, but it's like in the very bottom right, and you only see it very, very briefly, but he's holding his head, and it's like, oh my gosh. So this movie's like really graphic in its own like subtle way if you're looking for it. Kind of crazy. The loyalty of Duncan right here is really touching.
My Lord Duke.
He just, man, he's so loyal, and he's such a good friend, and I just love all this. This movie is just like such a perfect example of setup and payoff and setup and payoff. Aww. All right, as Dr. Kynes is waiting so that she can get a worm Uber. Check this out. It's so cool. She gets, I mean, it sucks, but she gets stabbed, and instead of a bunch of blood coming out, it's like popping her steel suit. So, like, look at what happens. She just, like, loses a bunch of water. Look at that. You see that big squirt? I just think that's so cool. It's such attention to detail. Kind of reminds me of in Saving Private Ryan on the beach scene when the guy gets shot through the canteen and you see clear water coming out because he got shot through the canteen, and then you see blood coming out. And it's just as the camera's going by, and it's like, man, that is such detail. All right. I was watching this with a different friend, and we were talking about it. And listen to this dialogue right here and tell me if it sounds like anything else. It might be hard through the phone. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Listen to this.
As soon as we land, run for the rocks.
All right. I may be way off base here. But, so that's Paul that said that. And his dad's already dead. But his voice, I know it's muffled by the mask, and I know that does change your voice a little bit, but his voice just then with that line, and maybe even the line before when he's like, we're about 15,000 meters or whatever he said, that line that he just said sounded like his dad. It sounded like Oscar Isaac. And so I don't know if they did that on purpose, if they're trying to, because he's put the ring on his finger, his Stampy ring, and you know, the other guy, Duncan, like swore allegiance to him, and you could see his face where he's like, oh man, I got to get used to this. So he's filling those shoes more and more, or trying to anyway. And so I'm wondering if, because the sound design is so incredible in this movie, I wonder if they snuck that in there where they kind of did have it sound like Oscar Isaac's voice to show that he's growing in confidence in his dukeship and also in taking care of his mom, and also as a pilot, because his dad's a really good pilot. So I don't know. That sounds like Oscar Isaac to me. And my friend that I was watching it with, we both thought it sounded like Oscar Isaac. Could just be a little guy here boop, with his mask on, but it sounded like Oscar Isaac. So I don't know if that was just one more layer of the incredible sound design of this movie, of them being like, yeah, he's following his dad's footsteps, so his voice comes through a little bit. I don't know. But sounds like it to me. I know that once you make your work of art and give it out to the world, it's up to us how we want to interpret it. But I would want to know if that was intentional or not. What do you think? I don't know if it comes with this. I'm just recording this on my phone, so I don't know if it comes through. So if you have it, go to that part and listen and tell me if you think it sounds like Oscar Isaac. So I love how in Paul's vision with this guy that he's fighting right now, how in the vision he's like, come with me, I will show you the ways of the desert. And he's like super calm, but in reality he's like this. He's just like freaking out, and he's going to fight him, but Paul's going to learn a huge lesson from this. And we get the same musical cue right here as we got when he was doing the, what's it called, Gam Jabbar, where he had his hand in the box, and then he looks up at her. Basically does the same thing right here. So a lot of people are frustrated with how this movie ends, being like, it's just a part one or whatever. But I think this musical cue and him basically rising to the occasion right here, I think that part of his journey makes this part one a satisfying movie all by itself. But yeah, it's the same music as earlier. Gosh, I can see my eyes in the phone. So again, sorry, I'm recovering from surgery, so if they're all bloodshot and it makes you uncomfortable, sorry. So this is a pretty beautiful moment as he's just stabbed this guy, and he goes and grabs his hand. And we actually saw in his vision that the guy grabbed his hand as he was dying, and now he is holding this guy's hand as he's dying. And that is just like, it's like so beautiful, because he didn't kill him out of like rage or anger or anything. He killed him because he had to kind of adhere to their stuff. Also, he wasn't going to let him not kill him. So I just think that's so beautiful that he's like holding his hand as he's dying, and he saw in vision that he was going to do that to him. All right, so, but right after Paul did stab him, everyone is like standing up like, holy crap. So you range from people like this that are just like, oh my gosh, that just happened, to her who's a little sad about it because it's probably her buddy. But the reaction to him stabbing the guy that I think is the absolute most powerful is his mom. Because look at this. So what did that look like? To me, it looks like, so you're like, yes, he won. Like, my son lived, yay. But you look at her face. Look at that. So you have simultaneously, and she's a good actor, and this is good editing, she's got relief, but she almost looks devastated. And so she's relieved that he won and he's alive, but at the same time she's devastated because he's never killed anyone before. And so she had to just watch him basically take that step that you can never ever come back from. And so she actually kind of looks heartbroken on this part where she's like, my son just killed somebody. At the same time, she's relieved that he's alive. But I think that's what her face was saying. I think she's pretty devastated that he just killed somebody. And I think that is beautiful acting and amazing editing. So that is a pretty incredible arc for a part one. Obviously, there's way more to see with the big story, but I mean, look at his awesome hair right there too. So cool. But yeah, I think it's a satisfying arc for the first movie, and I loved it. I love every second of it. I was telling my friend that this movie like edifies me, it like uplifts me to watch it. And then I started thinking about what I just said, and I'm like, wait a second. You watch the House Atreides basically get crapped on for 2 hours, and I'm like so uplifted every time I see this movie. This movie just pumps me up. I love it. This is easily one of the best movies ever made. Yeah, probably. I think it's perfect. The only part that I thought was a little bit pretentious in the theaters was after the lady visits him and does the needle thing to his neck, and then the ship flies off and the music gets like extremely loud right there. I was like, it's a little like artsy and pretentious right there. But I mean, this thing is incredible and perfect. So thank you for sticking with me. If you did this long, I'd be impressed if you did, and thank you if you did. This has been me gushing over Dune. I love this movie, and I'd love to hear what you think on it. And yeah, thanks for going through this journey with me. Like I said, let me know what you think, or if you prefer the older one. But it's been fun. I really, really look forward to the next one coming out. But I'm also very nervous. I'm very nervous because I love this one so much. I trust Denis because I really like a lot of his movies. But I'm nervous because I like this one so much. It's kind of like the next Spider-Verse movie. I love Into the Spider-Verse. And so I'm nervous for Across the Spider-Verse just because I love the first one so much. Anyway, I ramble on. We've hit 30 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if you want more of this action.